What's up? I'm on Rohan, all that good stuff. My day is going pretty good. Hopefully yours is. You can always leave a comment on that if you wish. Misconceptions upon what it is you might see, upon what it is that you might hear. How many of these are true upon what it is you see or hear? So many times it's hidden right in front of you. The question is, do you notice or do you not? So much information can be gathered by description. Can it not? Or being there as it is happening, whatever it may be. The only question is about that. How many misconceptions have you been led to believe about what it is you hear or see? You realize what one of those is, right? Fairly easy to explain that, isn't it? How many times in your life do you have that? Say you just met someone and all that good stuff. Judging from what it is that you get from them when you first start conversating, what's your first impression? And how does that lead to what it is that is what it is you do with that individual, regardless what it is they do? Do you know why you feel that way? Do you know how, in a science aspect, that works? You just meet somebody and you just know there's something about them. Doesn't matter what they do, doesn't matter how nice they are. The only thing you think is, I wish for this person to be afar. Do you know why that is? Are you being deceived by your senses or are you not? Do you know how to tell? If you know and you know how to tell, any misconception and truth, you're able to tell. If you do not understand why, for that simple kind of thing, more than likely, many, many deceptions or misconceptions do you see. It has to do with other things that correlate with everything that is you. You ever heard the term, I get bad vibes? You know what vibes are, right? You know what they're actually saying when they're saying that? I'm getting bad vibrations. You ever hear of sympathetic noise? Do you know what that is? If you're an extended range guitar player or bass player like I am, you know exactly what that is. If you're a normal guitar player, you're never going to deal with it. Except for one particular thing. Drives you nuts too when you hear it. You ever play the guitar and all of a sudden that snare starts buzzing? That's a sympathetic noise. You ever notice it only happens when you hit certain notes? Look it up sometime. Extended range bass player or extended range guitar player, and you'll notice one thing different that they do that everyone else does not. Either A, they have learned to mute all of their strings except for the ones they wish to vibrate, or they get a little thing and they put it on the top of the neck. You'll see it like a little cloth kind of thing. That stops that vibration. Because certain frequencies vibrate with others. That's scientific. You can prove that in every single way you ever could imagine. I'm getting bad vibes. Now, I want you to think about something for a few seconds. Give you a little bit of a lesson of something you don't know. Or you might. Okay, now, your blood is moving throughout your body, is it not? Now, what happens if you take something and try to move it through an area that is tighter, but it's going through? Constantly moving. It's going to vibrate, isn't it? That's why you don't. With that individual. The frequency that they're putting off because of that is one that does not match with yours and actually conflicts with. That's why no matter if you're like, man, I need to try to be nice to this person, I need to. That's why you can't. Were you under the misconception it was something else? Simple as that. It can be proved in science. Every study you can ever try to do, you can prove that. Funny thing about it is, there's a reference made many, many, many years before that. Before science could prove that. Oh, by the way, each person has their own unique one. Did you know that too? Just like your fingerprint. Are you under the misconception you're not different? Now, can you use that to your advantage? Instead of trying to associate with that person that you do not get good vibes from or vibrations. Why not match up with one that has the same instead of one that is not? That's one misconception. People think it has to do with something else. Truth, though, that is what it has to do with. I wonder what other misconceptions have you been led to believe? Like you're only good enough to work a 9 to 5? Is that a misconception you have? If it is, then that is what you will spend your whole life doing. And guess what? You'll be very unhappy at the end of your life. You'll review upon what it is that you have done, and there's one thing that you will say. I wish I would have. Do not be under the misconception that you cannot make a mountain move. That situation, that's the mountain, my friend. Whatever it may be. Even if it seems that you cannot pass. If you show a willingness and the ability to see past, then what will happen? Are you under the misconception that you are less? You are what you decide to be. Nothing more, nothing less. By the way, I also mentioned something else. Remember that whole thing with the vibrations? Somebody that is successful and is pursuing it and is relentless as it is they pursue. There's one thing, for one that does not, that will be different from you. What it is they put off as far as their frequency will be majorly different than yours. But one that chooses to be less, all others that are similar to that, their frequency matches. Closer in the range, that is. Are you under the misconception that you are less? All you have to do is overcome that. Start to believe that is all you must do. Do not be a statistic of this misconception that was brought to you. For when it is that you strive for what it is you wish to be, many misconceptions will it be that you see. Some will say, oh, you must follow this or follow that. Oh, it is luck that is required to get that. Nah, you're not as good as you think. Why do you work so hard on such a thing? Do you really think it's worth all of that? Why don't you just go back to your 9 to 5? That is only a few that you will find. The misconception that you cannot be upon what it is that you dream. Do not forget, many things have happened just because of a dream. The misconception that you are less. Are you one that chooses to believe this? Are you one that does not? Do you not know? With effort, you can show great, great things, if it is only you take the time to do such things. The misconception of anything else. If it were you to do what it is, would the pudding show anything else? Would it be if you put in enough work, you wouldn't get what it is because you didn't put in the work? Why be led to misbelieve that you are not able to achieve? That is a misconception. You must rid yourself of this misconception. The misconception that you must work something that you were never meant to. You know I'm right. It doesn't matter what it is you say. It doesn't matter what it is you try to prove. The only thing I have to say, if you were not able to do such a thing, why would it be you would see such a dream? Do you want it? Do not be led by the misconception that you cannot get that, whatever it may be, regardless if it is personal growth, a business you wish to see, someone maybe you wish to be with. That you're no better than what it is that happened. Do not be misled by this. This misconception has done one thing and one thing only, led to strife. Which is it that you wish to have? Life or strife? Hey, what's up? How you doing, bud? Not only that, it's also led to something else. The wealthiest place on the earth. Do you know where it is? The graveyard. So many ideas, so many inventions, so many things that we'll never get to see. All because they chose not for it to be. Even things that, when they go through what it is, because many of these that I speak of actually have dates upon the time that they did come up with the idea or whatever it may have been. Many times, the very things that you are seeing and experiencing now came up with far before they actually were shown. By these, the very same, exactly. Like the idea of TikTok. You know how many people probably thought of that? Far before. But they did nothing with it. Or this AI stuff that's coming out. You realize there was probably somebody that thought of that far before now. I mean, there's even stories that would impact people's lives that were never published and never will be able to be. All because they did not believe. Are you under the misconception? Such as this, that you can just hold on to it and not do what it is that you call this? If you do, what will go to the graveyard along with you? The most thought of way to die, or most ideal for most people, are to be around their families, their friends and family as it is they die. But humor me for a second. What if it was your dreams and aspirations looking at you with angry eyes, saying, "We came to you. You were the only one that was able to give us life. But yet now, we must die with you." Is that something that you wish to do? Okay, maybe you don't have the funding. There's still stuff that has to be done as well. Other than that, there's information and other things you need to get to do that. Must practice upon what it is that is your craft, whatever it may be. What do you think? You're just gonna get it? From the time you start? Do you think that it's not going to be hard? Are you unaware upon the fact, as far as your ideas, you're the only one that's supposed to do that? I know I said that it shows up later, but that one that showed up first, they were the one that was supposed to introduce that, not the one to let it die with them. Missed an opportunity, all because a misconception they were not good enough. Do you think McDonald's would be McDonald's if they thought their food sucked. You think Applebee's would be Applebee's if they thought that? You think any restaurant chain, or ones that are more high end even, do you think that about them? The very thing that you can grab anything in your house. Anything, it don't matter. Grab your phone. Do you think that about whatever type of phone you have? You under the misconception? That wouldn't be there. Now think about what it is that might be your idea or aspiration. How can that apply to what it is I just said? Do you think without the effort, you're going to be able to accomplish anything? Walt Disney went bankrupt 6 times. You're under the misconception you can't do anything. There's plenty of things you can do, regardless if it is that you believe that you can. But to truthfully be successful and show what it is that you can, you must start by getting rid of this misconception. Ask one that has been successful in their business. Do they have that? Do they not? No, they don't. They believe they can provide what it is they wish to provide, and they do nothing less. So many misconceptions people get, but they always tend to forget. If it is that you truthfully wish to get, there must be actions performed, regardless if it is research or the idea to reform. Realize how many revisions of things before you actually get to see? Or ask one of the ones that have shown something great, something that you think is almost unachievable. Ask them how many times they did that first. Guarantee you they won't say, oh, just one. Is that a misconception you have as well? I wonder how far can that get you? By thinking, does that work well? You are the decider of your fate, not some misconception that ones that chose not to be successful made. It's just an excuse. At the end of your life, will you believe that excuse? Or would you ask for another chance? Because the only thing you'll be saying if you did not do, that I wish I would have. Go to a nursing home. Ask questions. See what they say. You'd be shocked. You're under the misconception that you'll be happy with it at that point? Because statistically, when that comes to that kind of thing, 98% of the population that's there right now and has been there every time they've tried that. Kind of funny, 98%. There are a few that you will find that are happy with everything they did, yes. But most of the time, that's not the answer you get. So, where do you get these misconceptions? Do they come from ones that are successful? Or did they come from ones that have failed? They tried to come up with an excuse of why they were justified. Do you justify your choosing not to? You realize you do yourself a disservice as well as everyone else, do you not? You under the misconception that people will not care that you did not act? I know normally I rhyme and all of that. Doesn't always mean that I have to do that. Though if it is that I chose to do, it doesn't matter. Either way, it's still I say the same to you. Do not lead in a misconception. For any that has been successful, they already know this. For they are ones that have done this. Ask ones that run a business that are multi-million. Ask them, did you do nothing to get that million? How much of your day have you taken in charge of? How much learning above what it is that you must have you done? How much upon your personal growth? How much in other areas, whatever it is, as far as growth? How much time did you spend complaining? How much time did you act instead of complaining? How many times upon the fact have you failed? What kinds of things it is that you learned, as it is you failed? Are you happy upon what it is that you have done? Were you under the misconception that you are one that cannot win? Ask all of that to them, and see upon what it is they say. Guarantee you, they don't think that way. How is it that I can be better than what it is that I was? How much more is it that I can offer compared to what it was? How much more is it that I could make, even for the ones upon their work, my money they happen to make? Can I do so in a way that ensures upon the fact they still get paid, but less than the one that actually chooses to act? I don't know if you caught that last part, did you? You want to have a promotion in the job you're in? What, supervisor position or something? Question is, do you already perform the job without being paid? If you do, you're more than likely to get the job upon that day. But if it is that you work as if you do not have, compared to one that works at that level and beyond and past, which one will get it? Which one will not? Very simple business practice. Are you under the misconception they do not follow this practice? No matter upon where it is you might work. Or how much more is it that you might be able to get? If it is that growth is what it is that you wish to get. Say you might be trying to do such a thing as that. What happens if they find out that you are truthfully doing that? You choose to go to school as it is that you work your 9 to 5 in an area that they can easily pay you above your 9 and 5. Upon the time you graduate, who do you think will be the first to ask you when it is you graduate? Under the misconception that they'll pay you for more, but it is you do less? Do you see where this is going with this? Your dream and aspiration. Do you think you're going to be getting paid more for doing less? Same idea along with this. Only difference is you are the boss. You're the one that chooses if it is upon the time you work. So upon your aspiration, do you work? If it is that you wish to make it and get paid for what it is you do, you cannot just sit back. Silver platter for you. Under the misconception that you are owed something. Have you done the work to prove that you are owed something? Doesn't mean it will happen right away. Only thing you must do is pursue it upon every day. Speaking of that, something unique, I have to say. Within, just a personal example, within a year and a half, actually a little less than that, 1,000 videos have I produced. Not counting what it is that I'm doing now for some of them. A 1,000 videos in 1 year. I've already done the math, by the way. Something interesting. While I'm on that subject, that happens to be here. Right now, without my shorts, I do 14 videos per week. At 1 year, do you know how much that is? 730. So, you think I've put in some time, or have I not? Are you under the misconception that you do not have to work to get where it is you wish to be? No matter if it's personal growth, business growth, how much have you put in? How much do you get in return? The more effort you put in, the more you get better and you get learn. Do you think upon one day I was able to speak as it is that I do upon this day? Look in my specific playlist, gameplay poems. One of my first. Compare it to one of my last. Which, by the way, every single thing that I've done as far as this motivational poetry is all in that playlist. And eventually this will be as well. I'll leave that time for the Twitch community to get it first. That is, if it is good. Then it goes to my YouTube. It is something I do not see as official. I do not treat it as if it is official. So are you under a misconception that maybe you don't make the progress that you think you should? Easy way to find out. If it is, just you cannot see that it's good. Do you ever keep a record upon what it is you do? Some way to record upon what it is you do. If it is that you work a 9 to 5, guess what they do as it is you work your 9 to 5? You ever have that paperwork that you must fill out? You realize there's ones that do paperwork that you do not see about what it is that you happen to achieve, or what it is that you did not. So why would you not do that for yourself upon this spot? For me, mine is what it is that you see. And here, upon this day, major difference upon how it is I have spoken from the start to now, regardless if it was motivational poetry or normal content. And I have proof of this. So when it is that I might start to doubt, I do not get the misconception because I have proof that can dispel that doubt. You're under the misconception you do not have resources. You realize how many you might have. And you're not aware that you do. Like your phone. You realize you use only about 2% what it is that it's capable of. What about planning your day? Do you do such things for your day? There's a reason why it is they teach you that in school. All successful that have what it is you wish. Do you think they do not do this? So what is it that you have planned for today? Many think that that is something you should not do. You know why I think that is true? Because that is the very last thing they happen to do. But also, here's the thing that is interesting as well to reveal to you. That 9 to 5 you work. I wonder, do they plan what it is that you will do as it is you're at work? Hmm. Under the misconception, there's a reason why you're working for them. You're doing less than what it is that they're doing for you. They're planning your day. They're writing down your progress. Yet, you have an aspiration that you do not know your progress. You do not have a plan upon what it is you wish to do, and you wonder why success has not been knocking on the door for you. It will not knock if it is that you do not do upon what it is you're supposed to do. If it is that you have a determination to do, some of these things, particularly, will not apply to you. If it is that you are one that wishes to be lazy or one that is not very good with commitment or have doubts upon what it is they should do. That planner, that might work well for you. That way you have something to look upon. By the way, that's one way you can keep the progress that you have done. For a lot of times, you can either write or check it has been done. One way for you to show your proof. When it is, doubt comes knocking on the door of you. What it is that you might have done. You can look back. This is what I have done. Or maybe you can write down your thoughts upon what it is and where you think you are in this spot. You under the misconception that you might remember that? Or forget? One moment in a day, only about 60 seconds. You can be thinking one thing, and within the next, you're thinking of something that was not like the first. 30 minutes later to an hour, you forget upon what it is you thought at the first. What did you have for breakfast today? Was it that you had dinner 2 nights ago? What was the last serious problem that you had to solve? That was beyond this following week that you happened to be in that you had to solve. What about 3 months ago? What was the hardest struggle that you learned something from? What is it that you tried to achieve that you couldn't, but tried to make a mental note that you need to work on it because you couldn't? 3 months ago, as far as that. You see where this happens to be going? Do you know how to answer any of those questions as they're going? Or do you not? How much about yourself do you know upon this spot? Under the misconception you do not have to know. Ah, that happened last week. Why do I need to know? When it is you have doubt, and the proof opposite must show. How do you feel if it is that you cannot prove upon that fact? You realize how much power is within that? Yonder the misconception that you do not need to plan your day. And you wonder why it is. You are not the 2% upon this day. Well, it looks like time for me to take an intermission and all that. Might be a good time for you to do so as well. Maybe a good time to come up with some comments or questions or anything else like that. Also mention if you like my motivational poetry stuff that I do, it is also available under Gaming with Knack, Inspirations of a Gamer. Only other thing I will say is this particular video and ones that have had the intro like before are ones that you will only see in my intermissions of my streams. No other way will you see that. Now, when it comes to your patience in dealing with people other than someone you talk to a lot, how much patience do you have with them in that spot? If it is that you must repeat what it is that you have happened to already say, how many times until you just become aggravated in what it is you must say? And even when it is that you happen to say, they act as if you had nothing to say. How far is your limit as far as that? Personally, as far as certain things that involve that, to be honest, I've already hit my limit. You can only repeat yourself so many times and they do not listen. Before you just count them off and choose, even if you told them they would not listen. But can you do that and still be nice? For me, that is a current and hard fight. To be honest. In particular, when it is that I post such things as where you will see this. Posted on media, and this is what I get. They start asking and prodding me to answer. But even if I give them the answer, they still do not listen to what it is I have said. So, how far is your limit? For me, it's taken me a year to reach. Actually, slightly more than that to reach. But how long does it take you? Now, in this particular video, that will be able to be seen by you, proof of things that I have to work on as well. Being polite when it is that I've already said. I do not like repeating myself. I'm sure many feel the same way. When you have to answer the same question every single day. And then the ones that you do, they act as if you did not answer. Now, my question with this. Do you rid yourself of ones that discredit your answer? Because they are not willing to listen? Or do not respect your answer and will not listen? So what is it that you do with that? Very hard. I will say that. Particularly for me, promoters, and ones that wish for me to have work done as far as like overlays and animations and other things. Of course, if they actually paid attention as far as the animators and other things, they would already see that I have that. You realize how many times I have to tell them I already have that done before finally either they do not stop and I have to block them, or they respect the answer. or promoters asking me why. Well, fairly easy to answer. I've already given the answer, but they do not listen. Now, do you have a situation where you give your answer and one does not listen? How many times before you must say, well, bye? That's a hard one to answer. But if you know your limit, you know where it is lies your answer. I've had many say that I seem to be rude. But let me ask you this. If you dealt with 5 to 6 per day, asking the same thing that you do upon this day, after a year, same thing day in and day out, wonder how irritated would you be with that subject? Something that does not help you grow. Maybe in that specific field, yes, but in personal growth, no. But like in my circumstance, keep asking me for money. I do not have any. And they act as if I say something totally different. That is something that I'm personally dealing with. It's not very easy to be something to be dealing with. To have as if ones that have plugs in their ears that they will not listen. No, no, I can't do that. Oh, surely, no, I can't do that. Continuously hounding me. After a while, there have been a few that have been respectful. Their conversations are there, and they're not blocked because they are respectful. A hard subject to speak about. Really, it is. To speak about what it is that you yourself are irritated about. That you've already given the answer to, but no one seems to wish to answer. And notice the fact that you happen to answer. Now, the promoting thing, I have no problem with that. When I'm ready, I will do that. For the ones that hound me, more than likely you will not be the one that does that. Just a small example of limits, of what you can take before you hit your irritation limits. Now I realized I spoke a little bit more about myself, but is there anything that you can describe that is similar to what it is I just described to you? The question is, in that situation, what is it that you do? Do you get rid of what it is that is the situation? Do you separate yourself from that unfavorable situation? Or do you not? Only other question is, how do you feel currently? Is it something that always plagues you? Well, if it does, then why does it remain? As far as things like that, if you do nothing to separate yourself from that, it remains the same. That's why once it is my limit is reached, I acknowledge and act so that I can release that. At least that is a personal practice of my own. Instead of dwelling on it and making it worse. Even though I know I must work on it to ensure that I can make it to where it gets better, not worse. But do you acknowledge such things? Do you know what irritates you and how to address such things? In a way that is more constructive. When you're irritated, though, it is hard to think constructive. Do you know what your limits are of when frustration may hit? Do you know what to do to ensure that in the next time it may not frustrate you as much as it did the previous time? Well, that looks like all the time I have for this. Well, if there's any questions or anything, or any comments, usually would take this time to address that. So I'll wait a second. Alrighty, back all that good stuff. I'm going to do something I don't usually do. And I'm not sure how loud it's going to be, but
I was doing one of my other series or whatever, and well, my game volume is the same as what the music I'm listening to. So I'm going to show that so you can get a general idea of what I'm listening to. So the misconception that you might have. Is there any proof behind the misconception you have? Is it something true or is it something false? Is it something that, when you think about it, shouldn't be there because it's false? Do you have a misconception about yourself? Do you have one that maybe, not knowing it, you speak bad about yourself? An edge of a knife that causes strife, or it causes life. So when it is that you speak over yourself and your life, which of the two, strife or life? Are you under the misconception that if you speak bad about yourself, you get past what it is that you have just said about yourself? Do you speak good? Do you speak bad? Does what it is that you say, does it make you happy or sad? What misconceptions about yourself do you even think? Or upon these things have you ever taken the time to think? Statistically speaking, one that speaks good over themselves, they go farther than one that does the opposite over themselves. In fact, there was a recent study that was shown. Social media for this was shown. They've done this many times, actually. They took water. By the way, you're, what, 70% water? And they had people speak good over one and bad over the other. You want to know what was interesting about that? The one that the good was spoken over, do you know what they made when they said that? A snowflake. Do you know what the other made? They've also done a study before that they took two leaves. One spoke good over, one they spoke bad over. The one that they spoke bad over wilted and died by almost a week or more before the one they spoke good about. Do you not know that that happens to you too? You speak good or bad? You under the misconception that you will do good if it is that you speak bad about yourself? Do you not know you use your double-edged knife against yourself? It's the reason why it's a double-edged knife. One blade points out, the other blade points in. Add to that, look at your tongue. What shape does that make? The fat part in the center and then it tapers down on the edges. Looks a lot like a double-edged knife, does it not? So are you under the misconception you can do such things and be successful in this spot? If you do, I wish you luck, but statistics are against you. So, these misconceptions that you might have. Is there anything that you will change? Or the same result will you have? It's up to you. If it is that way. The proof is undeniable upon what it is that you say. How upon yourself do you speak upon this day? How do you speak to another? What happens if it is blocked? Blocked by another? For what it is that you have said is untrue, a misconception said by you. Does that blade that points toward the inside, does that come flying right back and hit you? Or does it not? Are you under this misconception? Or any other that I might have spoke of? Easy way to change that. Do something to change that. If it is that you are not getting better, then it is that you are getting worse. Is it not? So how much have you tried to learn upon this spot? There's a reason why it is that you're getting worse. For the ones that wish to be the 2%, they are doing things that only the 2%. They are progressing forward, you are not. So, are you getting better or are you getting worse? Does that make any sense at all? If you stand still in a single spot, somebody else runs to another. Are you behind or ahead? So what will you do to ensure that you be better upon the fact? That's the point, isn't it? If it is that you wish to just live your days, just remember You will regret that at the end of your days. When it is no more that you can say, no more actions you can perform upon any day. The only thing you can do is, what did I do once upon a day? Thinking upon what it is that you have not done. Would you do that? Or would you rather be in a place at a time like that you can say, without a doubt, I have done 100% of what it is that I can do? Upon the dream and aspiration that came to me. You have a misconception upon this time you will not see. Us the ones that are in the nursing homes now. Did they think that then? But do they think it now? Live with a full cup. Don't live with anything less. You're the one that decides upon what it is that you get. If it is that strife is what it is that you wish to get, then that is upon what it is you will get. But even as it is that life happens to move on, you will still find other misconceptions as it is that you move on. Many that will make you ask, how did I not notice this at first? Why did it come to me all fast? For many do not strive to be anything other than someone that does not wish to be something in the end. Just pay attention to your friends. Do they try anything to be in a situation better than what they happen to be? Or do they complain and do nothing? Why it is you hear the complaint. Now, don't get me wrong when it is I say pursue your dream. You still have to be able to pay what it is you need to for that to be seen. Is that a misconception upon what it is you have? Do you think that for some reason you will finish last? And no matter upon what it is you stream, would you rather at least attempt it than regret not pursuing your dream? Is it a misconception that you think it is something that you cannot see? With enough work and determination, anything can be done. With such things as this, just think, every successful place or thing that you have access to, there was once a person that had a dream just like you. A lot of times, similar circumstances too. It doesn't matter if it is that you think it might be simple as well. Either way, what you do, that is up to you. So many misconceptions of what it is that you are able to achieve. So many misconceptions upon what it is you hear or see. More often than not, even upon what it is I do at this current spot. I'm sure many might have watched or heard. Oh, that's easy to do, as it is that I have heard. To speak. As it is that I do. Do you think that is easy to do? Not knowing upon what it is you might think. Not knowing what it is. What I say, what will it make you think? What do you actually see? Will you actually even take the time to listen to me? Will you say upon the fact what it is I say is not true? Even if there is undeniable proof. I've heard the phrase before. When I see it, I'll believe it. A lot of times, even if they say that, if they see it, they will not. I've had a few times in my life that was true at that spot. Are you under the misconception it's just a fool's dream to pursue what it is that you wish to do? You realize how much happiness and fulfillment you get as far as how it is you feel, what it is you do, what it is that clearly you make a big deal. For it is that it would not be a big deal if it was not at every moment that you're not doing the way you feel. Are you under the misconception you do not have such a thing, or you're unable to have that perception? Why is it that you would feel that way? Well, you'll understand that you are making a conscious decision. If it is, you're debating upon what it is that I'm saying to clarify your decision. Or to try to justify upon what it is that you choose not to do. By being defensive, you prove that in truth, what I have said is true about you. You're under the misconception that many that are successful think less of you because you are not successful. There are some that are snobs and other things, yes. But many only wish for you to get success. As well, just as them. Many donate to such things to ensure ones that actually work towards get to help upon the fact of what it is they need. For many have a very specific philosophy. As it is either that I am on my way up, or that, upon the time that I have reached what it is that I call up, I will help another regardless, as long as it is that they help themselves. Cannot show a horse where water is more than once, or you waste your time if you have done it more than once. Under the misconception, maybe your job is what it is you should be doing. Not saying that not all jobs are worth doing. But is it within what it is that you wish to do? If it is not, then why do you not try to make progress and where it is you wish to be, not where it is you wish not to be? You are the ruler upon what it is in your life you happen to see. You're the one that makes the decisions, are you not? Then why complain upon what it is that you have done in this spot? Does that make any sense to do such a thing? Would not complain if you already did that specific thing. Would not complain if it is that you actually pursued. Do you not get it? complaining proves you are disappointed in you. Instead of repeatedly saying it, maybe some actions to do? Most logical thing to do. Not necessarily the easiest. But everything worthwhile, most of the time, is not the easiest. Do you have that misconception that you are complaining because of what somebody else has done? About when it is that you're speaking of the end result of you, not for what it is they have done. Under the misconception, you cannot do anything, and yet, in your mind, you might think of decisions that if you had the chance, you would do differently. Proof even for you to see. You're the one who decides. Think that the circumstance was above you. Is that a misconception as well by you? Hypothetical question along with this might be able to answer why it is that it happened like this. Now, upon this situation, which way is it that you happen to think? I will not make it past this. That is all I can think. It is bigger upon than I am. Or did you think it doesn't matter what it is that stands before me? It cannot stand, for it stands before me. But as a wrecking ball, I will crush that wall until it finally happens to fall. So hypothetically, in that situation, which one were you in that situation? If you were the second, you would see opportunities that you would not with the first. For subconscious and your body, they respond to what it is you say. If you say, I will not make it upon this day, what is it that your body will do? What is it that your subconscious will do? Now, if it is that you are one, that's that wrecking ball one. Now, on the other side of that, if you think like that, what happens with your problem? You find solutions that if you submit to your problem, you can never find, for you have already admitted defeat to your problem. You under the misconception that the first is the better? Edge of a knife, my friend. Many times before the fight even begins, depending on how it is and how it is you put yourself in that fight will determine the end of the fight. For when you are the wrecking ball, your body finds a way. Your subconscious does as well. Or you have said what it is that you wish. And your subconscious and body will do everything to accomplish this. Under the misconception that you are not the one that determines your perception, under the misconception that you must have whatever items you think you must have, upon what it is that you say about this. If it is that you say this, how much information do you still need to do or find out first? Many times people say that, but they're not prepared to do the research upon what it is before they can get the items that they think they need to get. Or you can have the best equipment in whatever field you wish. But I can assure you of this. If it is you do not know how to use it, it is a waste. How many misconceptions about your success do you have? I wonder if you were to number them, how many do you have? Is it many? Is it a lot? Is it a short amount, or is it very little in this spot? But the question is, what is it that the most happens to pertain to? If you can answer that, you should be able to figure out what it is you need to do to change that. Pertaining upon what area if it is that you do. Personal growth, what it is you think of you. Or maybe how it is that another happens to perceive you. Is that another perception? That you might be misperceiving? Or having a misconception? Do you really think that another can influence upon what it is that you do? depending on the field that you happen to do. That could very well be true. But not pertaining to this. So, what misconception do you have as far as what it is that another happens to stop you from doing? Now, the question is, are they currently doing? A grain of salt must be taken upon a person's word. If it is, they have no actions that can prove this word. Is it a thing that is more like substance? Or is it something that you throw upon the ground because it cannot be substance? Oh, you can't do that. Nah, that's impossible. Nah, get your 9 to 5. You remember back when I was over there? So does another person's perception what it is that they think you can do control you? They're not your vessel. How can they say what it is that you're capable of? Only you know. To say anything other, you do not understand yourself. And you do not understand that you are the controller of yourself. As all the ones that have broken records, how is it that they happen to break those records? They seen themselves doing it, or declared they could, and then worked towards the fact that they could. No different than you, but there is a major difference. They do not take the opinions of others to heart if it is that they are not acting as well, and they also know that they are not the individual trying to do it. Why live under the misconception that another can tell you upon what is possible? For them it may be impossible, but does it mean that it is for you? Is it? Can you prove that it is not? You ever think of that in this spot? All these people posting these amazing feats right in front of you. Do you think that they thought that was impossible? No. They knew that it was. No matter if at the time it was. Are you under a misconception such as this? So you're going to let someone else that does not have control of your body, that knows your limitations, to tell you what you can and cannot do. Only you know your limitations, they do not. Unless you train with them upon that spot. That is a different circumstance that I do not speak. That is more a weight training thing. So many misconceptions people are led to believe, beyond the fact, for whatever reason, they choose not to believe. If they were only to open their eyes, they would see. Misconceptions upon the fact of what it is you see. Misconceptions upon the misconceptions is what it is. For you are the only one that knows what it is that you are able to do yourself. Don't you dare let another tell you what it is that only you yourself is to be allowed to say what it is you can and cannot do. For when it is that you happen to do that, there's something that happens when it is you do that. You become a slave of what another person happens to think. When it is that you are the one that they are, and currently have the ability to control upon what it is they think they know. But how is it that they can know if it is that you are the only one? They can know exactly what it is that you yourself can do. Why believe someone that does not know you? For at that point you sell yourself short of what it is that you could be. Because you believe in something another uneducated person can see. For they do not know your limits. That makes them uneducated upon what it is that you yourself can do. Misconceptions, so many out there, thinking that you cannot get to where it is you wish to go. But it is only you and only you that decides where it is you can go. But of course, it is only something that a few happen to know. Simple question to ask. Do the 2% that control the wealth in this world and are successful think in this manner? Then why do you?
misconceptions upon what it is that you might think that you are capable of. Will you prove the opposite upon what it is another happens to declare? Using a double-edged knife at that time they declare. Wishing for only but strife. But it is your choice if it is that you wish to counter that. Counter that with life. For it is they do not wish for you to be better than them. Some do not wish for you to succeed, my friend. How is it that they can keep you under their thumb if it is that you are above theirs? You do not like being under another person's boot? Then do something about it, or you will remain under that boot. That looks like all the time I have for now. So, until next time.